Hey love, what's up? Welcome to Confidently Uncomfortable. I'm your host Jago, health and lifestyle coach and not so regal confidence queen. Coming at you with the real, the raw, and of course, the uncomfortable. My mission is to show you that to be confident, it has absolutely nothing to do with being perfect or having it all together, and everything to do with you getting uncomfortable and pushing your limits. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. Okay, last week I kind of hinted towards what I was going to talk about today, and I'm really excited because it's something that I've had to work towards a lot on my own, and then I've also been helping a lot of clients towards this, and that's quieting your inner mean girl. So first I want to ask you, if you are someone who kind of struggles with negative self-talk or things along those lines, do those negative thoughts ever take or overwhelm you when you're looking in the mirror? So do you find yourself picking yourself apart every time you're looking at yourself or trying on a new outfit or whatever that is? And does it not stop there? Does it also go into when you're trying to take action towards your personal goals, whether it's for fitness or career? Do you find yourself going towards the negative and saying, you can't do this, you're not good enough, X, Y, and Z, all of the above? That's a sign that we need to quiet your inner mean girl. And I'm going to kind of break down who she is, what that even means. With this episode, you're going to learn a lot. You might need to stop and take some notes. And even after this, you might need to just do a little like a me time session and figure out, well, who is this person? And let's call her out. So this episode is all about calling out and quieting your inner mean girl. If you are someone who feels that internal struggle of never feeling enough, whether you've felt this in the past or you feel it in waves in certain areas of your life where you're just not feeling good enough, confident enough, pretty enough, skinny enough, whatever kind of enough you're not feeling, and it feels like an internal struggle. It feels like your own mind is telling you these thoughts about yourself. And as much as you try and quiet them, they always seem to creep back in, especially when you're starting to struggle with other things, when it's hard time for you, when your environment's hard, when you're going through something, she seems to creep back in, that inner mean girl. We're going to talk about calling out and quieting your inner mean girl. So in this episode, you're going to be able to identify negative thought patterns. This is going to be huge for stepping away from that negativity. We're going to create brain hacks for the next time that inner mean girl tries to put you down. And then, of course, I want to empower you and your best self to remind yourself of your worth. It's very easy to allow those thoughts of not feeling you're enough take over and even paralyze you from taking steps forward. So what is a mean girl? I mean, if you haven't, I've referenced Mean Girls, the movie, so many times. Like, go watch it because it's amazing. But a lot of times, us as women have this inner dialogue going on, and I call it your inner mean girl. And basically, when you're trying to pull yourself out of a hole or a dark space, there's something that kind of pulls you back. There's something that kind of tells you, like, who do you think you are to feel confident? Like, you can't be like that. You're not your goal weight yet. You're not allowed to be confident. Like, who do you think you are asking for a raise in your job? Like, you don't deserve that. You're not qualified. All of those things I've talked about, fear gremlins or like the fear monster. That's your inner mean girl trying to tell you can't, you're not good enough, trying to keep you small when you know you need to step into this world and own it, like take up space. And it's that inner dialogue telling you that you shouldn't take up space, you shouldn't make waves, you shouldn't do all those things. And that is something that we're going to kind of identify. When it comes to that inner mean girl, think about those. If you were to create this person, so if we're going to personify your inner mean girl, I have a couple of my clients are awesome at this, but basically they name them. So they name that inner mean girl and they personify her. And it's all of those things that are like those limiting beliefs that I've spoken about in the past. Like the thoughts that you feel are holding you back, the ideas and the narratives that maybe you've been told your whole life or that you've believed your whole life, whether they're true or you just feel like they're true. That is basically creating that inner mean girl, that person that's trying to put you down and put you in your place. So by personifying her, it's a really great way to remind yourself that you are not that being. Like, that is not you. Like, that small version of yourself, that small shell of that mean girl does not define who you are. So I actually think it's awesome to, as far as like brain hacks, what I have you do is if you feel like you've been stuck in like negative thought patterns, negative self-talk, you find yourself being really cruel to yourself when you're looking in the mirror. I'm going to stay with that one for a while, but when you're looking in the mirror, like, let's call her out, okay? It's not just about trying to tell yourself, like, when you are having those thoughts. So we're going to use the mirror example. So you look in a mirror and you're like, oh, I'm picking myself apart. I'm pointing things out. I'm pulling things in my body or feeling like negative towards it or comparing myself. Instead of just telling you that the solution is, oh, well, just look in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm beautiful. Like, that's all great and stuff, but like, if you don't believe it, then that's not really going to help you. So I don't want to lie to you and tell you that that is the solution to self-love and confidence, because it's not. I mean, it's a step. There's steps towards positive affirmation, but if you're constantly putting yourself and deep down you're not believing it, it's going to be really hard to shake that. So instead of trying to act like those negative thoughts don't exist and be like, no, I'm fine, I'm just going to quiet them, let's start by calling them out. So taking the negative thought that you're saying and asking yourself, is this really true, or is this a lie that I'm telling myself? Like, honestly, is this really true? Would my best friend actually say this about me? Would the postman really describe me like this if he was trying to bring a package to me? No, I'm probably just breaking this down in a way that's overly done. So calling her out and identifying those different things, personifying who she is. So let's say that when you are in a space where you're starting to feel small, you're starting to hold yourself back, the negative thought patterns come up. You can be like, all right, well, Mimi's coming out or whoever. And that's a good way to kind of recognize, okay, well, this aspect, this mean girl is trying to hold me back from my goals, but I'm not going to allow it. So personifying her is awesome. Literally, what does she do? What are those things that hold you back? What are the things that she believes about you, but that you don't believe about you? So by taking it a step outside of yourself, I think that can be very, very helpful. The other thing I recommend is a brain hack is using logic to quiet fear. So I kind of talked about this a minute ago, but basically if there's this fear of like, oh, well, my partner is never going to be satisfied with me. Like, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not, I don't know, think of fill in blank here. I'm not blank enough. Really think through that and use logic. Like, really, like, are there any other signs that are telling me that that is true, that's truth? Or do most of the situations where I'm with this person tell me otherwise? Tell me that no, they do care about me. No, this love is unconditional. That is just a fear that I'm letting seep in, that the mean girl is trying to tell me. So by breaking it down and using logic to quiet fear, that can usually help a lot. Highly recommend it. And the other thing about personifying her, and I love using Mimi because that's what I've had one of my clients use, and I think it's great. So the one thing about personifying Mimi is you're bringing it out of yourself, you're calling out the fears, but then also you can feel empathy for her. So you're seeing this and you're seeing her having these thoughts and you're like, wait, you're feeling this way because maybe someone told you your entire life that you were not good enough. Maybe you've been comparing yourself your entire life to someone else. Maybe you've been trying to measure up to this level of perfection that is unattainable, so you always feel as if you're failing. And when you're recognizing that she's been going through that and using negativity as more of a coping mechanism, using sarcasm and put downs as like a way to cope and like not feel, you can feel that empathy for her and be like, wow, like she's really trying her best, but that is the way she's trying to work through it and it's not healthy. So seeing her and feeling empathy for Mimi is a really, really powerful way to not let that take over you, but then also understand why is she feeling this way, instead of calling her crazy for feeling this way or putting her down for feeling this way, because that's such a double negative and we don't need that. We don't need to put down the person for the put downs. Like, it's okay. So feeling empathy for her is awesome. So we personified her. So we called her out for the things that she's saying. We're personifying her, so it's making sure it's like it's separate from ourselves. We're using logic to quiet fear. And then we're feeling empathy for her and understanding that she's feeling this way for a reason. And then we get to prove her wrong. This is my favorite thing. Is this necessarily the best thing? I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist, but I'll tell you that I love proving people wrong. It is a curse. I love it. So being able to prove that small version of me, that Mimi, that mean girl wrong is so empowering. So instead of allowing it to take over, I allow it to light a fire under me. So if someone is telling me, especially myself, like, you are not qualified, like you are not a fitness model, you cannot teach people how to lose weight, you are not a XYZ, you can't do this, you don't look the part, you can't do that. Like whatever that is, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And that's amazing, because then instead of allowing that to seep in and put you down, you're literally allowing all those negative things to build on top. You're calling them out, you're building up, you're standing on top of it, and then you're proving them wrong. I'm all about that. So the question that you ask yourself is, if you're getting to this point and you want to prove her wrong, you understand she's feeling this way, you're feeling empathy for her, but guess what? You're not going to allow that to affect you. What would that look like? Okay, so asking yourself, well, what would that look like if I were to prove you wrong? What action can I take today to show that I am not this way? So if it's a narrative telling yourself that you're lazy or that you always give up, guess what? Prove them wrong and do something. Prove you're wrong and step up and do it anyways. And remind yourself that you're more than those small negative things that you see in your life. Like, just because you're not perfect does not mean that you don't deserve to keep working towards your goals and to reach them. So that's huge when it comes to just working through your mindset on this. I don't ever want you to feel like you have to just give up because you're feeling like any kind of pushback, even inner pushback. So if you're feeling someone telling you can't, even on the inside, that's not a sign that you can't do it. It's a sign that we need to work through some of those limiting beliefs. And there's some growth that's going to happen. And that might take longer for some than others, because everyone's narrative is embedded in them deeper in different ways. So it might come out in a different part of your journey. It might come out in the beginning, middle, end. It might come out in ways that you didn't realize, in areas of your life that had nothing to do with fitness, and it had to do with like your career or your relationships. And instead of being angry at yourself for feeling this way or feeling negativity, or like, why can't I just be happy with myself? Why can't I just be confident like everyone else? Instead of doing that, figuring out a little bit more of the why and identifying that, and then also recognizing what is true and what is just a lie that we're telling ourselves. So I hope that's helping when you are taking time to identify your mean girl. So another question is like, how do I know how and when to stop the negative thoughts from spiraling? So how do you know when to stop them from spiraling? So if you're having negative thoughts, like I said, calling them out is important, but sometimes we're in a space where we can't sit down and like write all this out and work through it all. Like we need to just be able to step up and ask, well, what would my best self say about this? Like think about like a conversation between your two selves, and you're not separate, you're all one, but your highest self is telling you like, hey, you're better than this. You don't need to feel this way. And then that lowest self, that mean girl, is telling you, hey, you're not better than this, or whatever it is. And so being able to, at that point, listen to the highest self and be like, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to do it scared. I'm going to do it not confident and just show up for myself anyways and pray that confidence comes, and it will. So that's kind of the first thing. Sometimes you can't stop and just go through all of this deep-seated work that we're trying to do. You need to just kind of work through and find some positive. So if that means shifting, like if you're having negative thoughts about your body and you're not able to stop them in their space and like rethink them in a positive way, try and find at least a silver lining that you can be positive about. So if you're having a rough body image day, instead of letting that take over and take precedent, find something else you can be positive about. Like come back to gratitude and use that as a way to kind of pull yourself out temporarily to kind of get through the day, to kind of show up in your life and still not fall deeper into that hole. I hope that that's making sense for you. I'm trying to say that this stuff takes time. And so day to day, if you're struggling, don't feel like you have to like completely stop what you're doing and do all of this. I just want you to not allow it to spiral. So being able to shift your mindset towards gratitude, towards positivity, and every day it's going to look differently. Some days you're just not able to see that positivity in your body, and I don't want you to feel like that means you're failing. It just means you need to train your brain to shift towards something that you can see positive today. And if it's not your body that day, it's okay. It's okay. Maybe tomorrow you're going to feel more confident in your skin. But instead of putting yourself down for that, let's try to find some positivity and then work towards it. Another question is, well, what if I can't shake her? So we've done all the things with the brain hacks. We've called her out. We've personified her. We're using that logic to quiet the fear. We're feeling empathy for her. We've created this entire persona of the mean girl. And we're working towards proving her wrong, but I still feel like I can't shake her. Like, what do I do? I think take the pressure off and remind yourself that this takes time. That's why I'm a huge fan of writing things down and writing them out, because then you can see, well, how far you've come, because she's going to come out in different aspects of your life as you're working through this. So you might start to get really confident in your workouts and in your food and in your body even, but then you might still feel really unconfident in your relationships and still have a lot of self-doubt and fear and mean girl thoughts coming up there. But instead of putting yourself down for that, recognize, look at your writing, look at how far you've come. And that is why I'm like such a fan of just writing down this process and working through it. And then even though you feel like you can't shake her, well, what can I do today? How can I show up for my best self? So this is where empowerment comes from. So what your mean girl is trying to do is she's trying to tell you to feel weak and stay small and be little and don't speak up and don't make waves and all the things that we've told ourselves, right? And so I want you to find empowerment. I want you to feel empowered. And so a step towards doing that is actually a visual exercise where you're describing your best self, and then you're actually visualizing, what do they look like? What do they do? How do they act? What are their values? Like all the things. And so this is another way to identify that best self. So then when you're in that space of maybe not having the most positive thoughts, being pretty negative, you're able to come back to, well, what is this vision that I want to work towards? And daily asking yourself, how can I support my best self today? It's a great question to ask yourself. Also, after you've created this vision of your best self and what she does and who she is, asking yourself, well, what would she do? What would she say? It helps you, even if you don't feel like you're there yet, you're able to at least start to think like her, if that makes sense. So basically, I know sometimes it's hard you're wanting to be more confident, and a part of you feels like you're not there yet. But if you're able to identify, well, that my best self is super confident and sassy and like will speak up for her mind and all those things, like having the idea of asking yourself, well, what would she do? It helps you recognize that, like, oh, well, I can, even if I don't feel like I'm all the way there yet, I can still take action towards what she would want for my life today. And I think that's a really good way to think, because it's a very forward thinking way to go. Instead of being so stuck in the mindset of, well, I'm not there yet and I'm not confident and I'm stuck and I'm here, like instead of being there, focus forward and think, well, what can I do? What would she do? And then what is something I can do today that's going to get me closer to my best self? How would she support her goals and not her excuses today? That's huge, because your mean girl is going to try and just support your excuses all the time and tell you, well, I told you weren't good enough, so you might as well just give up now, right? But your best self is going to be like, hey girl, like, listen, you deserve to step up for yourself today, even if you don't feel 110% in your skin. You deserve to invest in yourself and in your health, even if you feel like you're not there yet. Even if you feel like you have a long way to climb, that doesn't mean that you just give up. It means you keep going. And so identify that person that you are working towards, because she's already there. She is already within you, and reminding yourself, hey, this girl's already here. I am progressing every single day. Those little mantras, those little reminders will help push you through when you do feel like you're spiraling. It'll keep you from continuing to spiral, so then you can take one step forward. And that is all it takes, is just small steps. But the vision of it is so important. So I have those two visual activities. So the visual activity of identifying and calling out your mean girl, And then the visual activity of like creating your ideal self. What are those values? What does she do? How does she show up in her life? What are her relationships like? What does she do for herself, for her health? Take time to see both of those things because they're both important. Because that mean girl is like your inner child and she's been through a lot, okay? So she's feeling this way for a reason. So don't be angry at her. Don't be mad at her. She's a mean girl for a reason. She's got a background, but we're going to call her out so that we don't empower her. Instead, we're going to feel that empathy towards her and we're going to empower our best selves. And that is how you can use both parts of you to end up on the better side of things, to end up feeling like, okay, I can do this. I've got this. I hope that this was helpful today. I know it's kind of a stretch of an activity as far as like doing this on your own. So if you want to re-listen to this episode and kind of go through the activities yourself, I highly recommend doing that. But just a little recap on kind of what I would like you to do. So if you are feeling like you have a lot of negative self-talk, negative self-image, you've just been putting yourself down, you've been in this narrative where you're just not super nice to yourself, we are going to identify those negative thought patterns. So we're going to figure out, well, when are those triggering? When are they happening? So once you identify them when they're happening, have something ready for you. So if it's looking in the mirror is like it triggers you being negative towards your body, have something ready to where you have a mantra, sticky note on your mirror that's saying like, I am more than my body, or my body is beautiful. Whatever you feel like you need to hear to quiet that inner mean girl, have that ready to go. If you know that it's after you, I don't know, go to a wedding, or you have, you go out with friends, or you go on a date, you need to kind of build yourself up again, then do that. Have that plan ready for you. So then you can, break down the negative thought pattern and really create a new one that's a positive pattern that is building yourself up instead of putting yourself down. Those brain hacks we talked about are super important when it comes to personifying your inner mean girl. So calling her out, creating her as like a person. So personify, use logic to quiet fear, feel that empathy for her, and then proving her wrong. So like identify, guess what? That doesn't define all of me. So just because I'm feeling this way does not mean it's truth. And that's super empowering and important to know. And then speaking of that, the final thing is just empowering your best self to remind you of your worth. You are worthy of love now, just as you are right now, sitting here listening to this. You're worthy of love. You are enough. You don't need to change in order to accept yourself for who you are, okay? It is beautiful to create positive change in your life, but I don't want you to feel like your love for yourself is conditional, okay? If you're working towards change, if it's weight loss, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to eat healthier, and you feel like you're struggling or you're failing at it, that doesn't mean that you have to hate your body for it. That doesn't mean you have to punish yourself. You deserve love right now. Sitting here, you deserve it. You're enough. You're beautiful. You are loved. You are strong. And you already have everything that you need right within you to create the changes. Okay. So I hope this was helpful for you. Please let me know if the activity helped. If you do go through the activity and you name your mean girl, share her. Let me know what your mean girl's name is. Let me know what she looks like. You can literally like pull off, like create an image of her if you want. You can even pull from one of the mean girls in the Mean Girl movie. I just want you to be able to grow from this and recognize that that does not complete all of who you are, that mean girl. That is just a part of the narrative and you're working through it. So I'm proud of you for doing this activity, whether you're doing it now or you're working through it later. Reach out to me, share that. I love this activity. It works really well with my clients. I do it with myself. So let me know how it works for you, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening to Confidently Uncomfortable. I love being able to connect with you here and honestly don't want it to end. So head over to my Facebook group, Body Confident Blueprint, and be sure to follow me on Insta at JGoFitLife. Also, if you're ready to get real confidently uncomfortable, go leave this podcast a 5-star review and email me the review screenshot, support@jgofit360.com, for a chance to win a free 30-minute fitness audit and goal setting session. I appreciate your support. See you next time.